shut down a jail like Rikers, that on operational cost alone is $1.5 billion a year of taxpayers' money.
That's a lot of money.
And that's just one jail. One jail. When we have a jail in every county, and some more than one in every county. But this is one jail. And we got to realize we're talking about a jail, not a prison. Two differences. Sentenced people are in Rikers, is not on Rikers. We have a percentage of, I think it's 7% of people on Rikers are sentenced, and that's only because they're coming down to New York to go to court for other charges, or because they're sentenced for less than a year.
Right.
But Rikers Island is a jail where you're innocent until proven guilty, so you're considered a detainee. However, they don't treat people on Rikers as detainees because they give them cards when they're released. If you ever want to go check this out, you can. When they released from Rikers, they're given a card, not an ID card, a New York State ID that they had, because that gets taken away and thrown away, where you didn't have to go to DMV and go through that like excruciating process. But they're given a card that says inmate. You were never an inmate, because an inmate is a title for a person who was sentenced.
That's what they're given when they are
When they're
Rikers.
released.
I see.
They have to have identification.
And that's the only ID they give them.
They give
It's
them
humiliating.
It's
That's
different from the
terrible.
card that they actually have when they're on
when
Rikers.
they come in, yes.
No, when they're actually on Rikers, they have a orange card with their picture on it,
Right.
and it says their name, their number, and everything. When they're released, they're given a separate card that says inmate. Now, that's embarrassing
It's humiliating.
and humiliating.
Yeah.
But then, so shut down Rikers, what we do is, one, we televise their stories. So we go and record their stories at their leisure, at their risk, like not risk, at their leisure. And what we've been finding is a lot of people that we're interviewing, and you can check it out. Like we have like shutdownrikers.everything. Like, so what we're finding is a lot of these people took pleas, almost every one of them, and yet when we hear their cases, if you look at the cases that we have, they're people who, people do crimes, like selling drugs. We have a war against drugs right now, and we've had a war against drugs since Nixon. But weed, you're going to go to Rikers for, where if you, or even for traffic violations, you must be arrested if you're driving and your license is suspended.
Right.
That's
Right.
I've been a victim of that.
Right.
A
A lot of people get that, when you don't. No, it shouldn't be criminalized. I agree with you. That should not be criminalized, like, at all, because people, they dragged into court, they...
Their lives are at risk.
Yeah.
At the very least, your life is at risk. I was arrested September of last year because my license was so-called suspended. Yet, at the end of everything, finds out it wasn't. But I was sitting in that pen, as close as you and I, with a person, big, baby Huey looking guy, with blood on his white t-shirt, blood on his face, but there was no cuts or anything, so you knew it was someone else's blood.
Right.
And I'm sitting there like, oh my God, what did they set me up for?
Right.
With a camera in the cell. So they're watching this like this is television.
Right.
Because they knew who I was, first of all. You can't not know, because
Right.
I do Black Lives Matter marches. I brought Black Lives Matter to New York in the abolition sense. And so anytime I stop, they can run me like that for my license plate. And so I got stopped. They pulled me over, put me in jail for a suspended license in the holding cell. And what they did was wait, because as soon as this guy, while he's sitting next to me, decides he was going to break down, because I ended up doing it's what I thought was smart. I started talking about Jesus. And he fell to the floor crying, begging for forgiveness from whatever he did. I didn't ask him or anything.
Right.
And I was like, brother, just like, you know what? You're not my enemy. I'm not here for anything with you. I just want to pray for you.
Right.
The officers, when he was on the floor crying, begging for forgiveness, the officers ran in there quick, thinking I hit him or did something, because maybe they missed it on the camera. Threw me on the floor, had my head down, and tells me, what did I do to him? And I knew this was going to happen. They were just waiting for something to happen, so that this so-called suspended license turns into an assault, probably.
Right. Exactly. It starts out one thing and it becomes this whole
It's
other...
criminal, the whole process. Why do I have to go to jail for a piece of paper or a card that says a wrong date on it?
Right.
Like, that's a technical error.
Right.
Make me pay something, if anything, but the process is defunct, in my opinion. Why do we do this knowing that these are human lives that's affected? You have to, if it's just going to DMV to renew your license, that process is even draconian. We don't have a fast DMV.
Right.
We have public workers that, or city workers that's civil servants that do slow. I mean, the process is so slow that we've never corrected it in New York. In fact, we give pieces of paper to say that, okay, we're going to mail you your
Right.
card
Yeah.
in a couple business days.
Well, what do you think can be done? Like, what do you think we can do as a society to better this? Obviously, there are people that commit crimes in our country, right? And there are obviously people that get caught up in this mess that we have of a criminal justice system. What can we do as informed citizens to help increase awareness of these issues that you brought forward? And where do you think we should go as a society to address these two competing groups of people?
So
That was a long question, I know.
no, that's actually, it's a really, and to break it down, what we should do in New York or as a society of people in the United States, first of all, is we have to realize that, one, we can't consider the thought that this is a violent crime and this is a non-violent crime because people get swept up in titles. Let's start humanizing people and realize that, okay, the act is he's being accused of a violent act. We need to start separating because of realistically we're putting everyone together in one pile of in one like state arena and saying, okay, fend for yourself until we get to your case. It's not about expediting the system. It's not about where we're going to put them instead of Rikers Island, because we can close down Rikers and then open up a new jail and do the same thing there. What we're talking about are human beings, and we don't have the empathetic heart to say, what are we doing to these human beings that eventually are going to be returned to our communities?
Right.
And what are we going to do when they come back here as like the gladiator from 300? Like, we're scared of them.
Right.
I mean, I'm sitting before you and I'm a previously convicted felon. I'm a person who we keep on changing titles, right? Instead, let's start humanizing. How do we get these people, one, while we're waiting to see if they're guilty, because you're innocent, so we have to watch our verbiage. We're waiting to see if your innocence is upheld. So while we're doing that, let's put you in some services. And we have the money for that because we're literally saying each person we're holding on Rikers is costing us as the taxpayers, the city of New York, we're holding them at $255,555 a year. Now, I don't make anywhere near that per year.
Right.
If I did though, I'd be living good, not in a cell on
Right,
Rikers,
right.
getting fed every other 4 days.
Right. And getting.
Or being beat. I mean, that's a good lifestyle.
So with your brother,
$255,000.
they were starving him at some point,
Every
right?
four meals they starve him. And when I went and visited him, I realized my brother didn't look like my brother because that's after he's been home eating,
Getting healthy,
and
love,
working
everything.
out.
Right.
Yep. And yet on Rikers he looked roughly around 135 pounds. And I'm like, Khalif, you're not eating? What's good? I mean, I know he was in solitary. I knew that. I mean, I worked on Rikers while he was there. I'm an engineer.
Okay.
I was working for the Department of Corrections at all the sites, but I was on Rikers mostly because I wanted to be because he's there.
Right.
But then I'd have to see him while he's walking in the halls, and I'm like, because he's like, yo, bro, and yo, Akeem, and I'm like, oh my God, Khalif, no, calm down, like, because basically, you can't have a family member while you're working there.
So
How
what-
crazy is that? Because
That's
if
crazy.
you're black and brown skinned, you got a family member at
Right,
one point.
right,
that's
right.
locked up-
Or someone
locked up.
that's been affected by the criminal justice system.
I like how you said that. In fact,
Well, what can we do to what do you think we can do to educate our white citizens that live below 86th Street in Manhattan? What can we do? You know, a lot of people say, well, you know, all this Black Lives Matter, and they have trials, and it's fair, and what can we do to begin to educate people? You know, like just as an anecdote, you know, I do trials often in Manhattan, and systematically prosecutors kick off people of color from the jury.
Mm-hmm.
They systematically kick them off because they have what's called a peremptory challenge, and what that means is you can kick somebody off just because you don't like them. Yes. So I just had a trial where the prosecutor kicked off consecutively 3 people of color, and so we did a Batson challenge, and she had to justify why she was kicking these people off. So, so if you get a jury full of white people who live on the Upper West Side or the Upper East Side, it's hard for them to fully understand what it's like to be a brown person walking around minding your own business. So how do we bridge that gap?
So, I mean, that's really baffling to me because I thought when you go to a jury, you're judged by the peers of your community. And if
Yeah.
those peers don't look like you are not being judged. But what we can do is, one, start being involved in your local, state, and federal policy and procedures and legislation. So, by getting involved, what you're saying is, I'm going to take time out of my busy day to learn about what's going to affect me. But go out there and lobby. You're going to meet all these non-blacks, and you're going to be in the presence of them, and it's empowering, first of all, because in the Bronx, say, right, we have successful people in the Bronx, but it's rare. So you don't. I mean, as Khalif said, right? Khalif wanted to be a businessman. He said he's like, I don't know what kind of businessman, but I mean, he's walking around seeing people in suits and ties, and it's impressive because you don't see that on a daily basis. I guarantee you wouldn't be impressive if he's seen his own skin complexion, or even in his community, people walking around with suits and ties and briefcases and going to work.
It's normal.
It's normal. But we need to start making ourselves normalized in society. I advocate for any black companies because it's unity that we need. I mean, we are a disenfranchised race of people that are trying, but we're trying in a way that says, I want to start my own company. I want to do for me and my family, or just me, right? And yet, we're forgetting our neighbors could help that out,
Right.
and be a part of it. Or, so we're only saying really, as a person that's like trying to advocate for not just blacks and brown skins, but every human, and especially kids with Raise the Age, what I'm doing. We're trying to say, you know what, we live in the United States of America. We need to act united then.
Right.
I mean, that's why we call ourselves the United States, not just because we're a group of land that's together.
Right.
But get involved with your state legislature. Call your assemblyman. Know who your assemblyman is, because he or she is the one, assemblyman or assemblywoman, are the ones that's speaking for your community to their senators, or to our senators, their bosses. And that senator is going to be speaking to the state for advocating for funding for your schools. But we don't do that. We leave everything for other people to decide for us. But for those whites that want to get involved, listen, realistically, when we say Black Lives Matter, what we're saying is we have to start putting ourselves first before we put you guys first, because we've always put you first in our education system. You're first. We learn about you guys first, and then you throw in the dreamer, Martin Luther King. Now, all respect to Martin Luther King, but we don't do him justice, because when he had that speech about, it wasn't just about the dream that he had, because then what we're saying to Americans and blacks is, your people are only dreamers. And then we also live off a fallacy, a dream, that you can live the American dream. And everything is about a dream that we're living, yet what is the definition of a dream? It's not in reality, it's fallacy, it's imagination. Wake up, America. When are we going to wake up and realize that the dream is over and we're living in turmoil? Our kids are growing up, and I personally, my girlfriend is pregnant. I have a fear now.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Congratulations to this fear that I have, that if I don't get my kid out of the United States, he's never going to be considered black, anything but black, or
Right.
you know, I'm not technically I'm in a black community, but my mother's Jamaican, my father's Moroccan. I mean, so it doesn't matter though.
Right.
My skin complexion says arrest him.
Right. Right. That's right.
And that kid, my kid, and
Yeah.
I just found out yesterday it's a son, so it's a boy. That's even
wonderful.
more scary, because as a male in New York,
No,
we
it's
make up
right.
Rikers Island.
You
There's
are
one-
Rikers Island.
Yeah.
That's